हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैवं नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। So welcome to our Sunday feast. We are reading from chapter 4. Are you able to see my screen, bro? No.
No problem. No move.
Oh, it got closed. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna.
Oh, you're muted. You're still muted, Pooh.
Is it okay, Prabhu, now?
Now it is okay.
Oh, when I share the screen.
Something happens, sir? Okay, I'll share the screen. No.
Yes, Prabhu. 4.29.6.
Oh.
Let me try once more.
No, I'll share the screen. No,
Okay.
it's ready.
Yes, bro. We can see now. Mamaite manasa yad yad asaiva aham iti bruvan
Asavaham iti bruvan
gruniya tat puman radham
Kriniya tat puman radham
karmayena punarbhava.
karma yena punarbhavaha
Mamaite manasa yad yad
mamaite manasayadyad
asaiva aham iti bruvan
asavaham iti bruvan
gruniya tat puman radham
Kriniya tat puman radham
karmayena punarbhava.
karma yena punarbhavaha
Mamaite manasa yadyad
Mamaite manasa yad yad
asavaham iti bruvan
asav aham iti bruvan
grihimyatat puman radham
gruniya tat puman radham
karma ena punarbhava.
karmayena punarbhava. Anybody from online want to read once? Can raise hand and maybe we can unmute accordingly.
I have given permission to unmute now.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Mamaite manasaya tasavahamiti bruvan
Asav aham iti bruvan
gృహ్ణ్యతాత puman radham
gruniya tat puman radham
karmayena punarbhavaha.
karmayena punarbhava.
Hare Krishna.
Maybe from Mataji's side, one more.
Mamaite manasa
Mamaite manasa yad yad Hare Krishna. Yes,
Sudha,
Shweta
you
Mataji.
can continue. You can.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandat
Yes,
pranam.
Mataji. Dandavat pranam, Mataji.
Mamaite manasa yadyad
Mamaite manasa yad yad
asavaham iti bruvan
asav aham iti bruvam
griniyat tat puman radham
gruniya tat puman radham
karmayena punarbhavaha.
karmayena punarbhavam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can I also tell Prabhuji?
Okay, Mataji, go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Mamaite manasa yadyad
Mamaite manasa yad yad
asav aham iti bruvan
asav aham iti bruvam
grihniyat tat puman radham
gruniya tat puman radham
karmayena punarbhavaha.
karmayena punarbhavam. Thank you, Mataji. So we'll read the word to word meaning. Mama, mine, ete, all these, manasa, by the mind, yat yat, whatever, asav, that, aham, I am, iti, thus, bruvan, accepting, graniyat, takes with him, tat, that, puman, the living entities, radham, perfected, karma, work, ena, by which, punaha, again, bhavaha, material existence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The living entity labors under the bodily conception of I am this, I am that. My duty is this, and therefore I shall do it. These are all mental impressions and all these activities are temporary. Nonetheless, by the grace of Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity gets a chance to execute all his mental concoction. Thus, he gets another body. Upward. As long as one is absorbed in bodily consumption, his activities are performed on that platform. This is not very difficult to understand. In the world, we see that every nation is trying to supersede every other nation, and that every man is trying to advance beyond his fellow man. All these activities are going on under the name of advancement of civilization. There are many plans for making the body comfortable, and these plans are carried in the subtle body after the destruction of the gross body. It is not a fact that after the gross body is destroyed, the living entity is finished. Although many great philosophers and teachers in this world are under the impression that after the body is finished, everything is finished. This is not a fact. Narad Muni says in this verse that at death, one takes his plan with him, Gruhinyat, and to execute this plan, he gets another body. This is called Punarbhava. When the gross body is finished, the plans of the living entities are taken by the mind. And by the grace of the Lord, the living entity gets a chance to give these plans a shape in the next life. This is known as the law of karma. As long as the mind is absorbed in the laws of karma, certain type of body must be accepted in the next life. Karma is the aggregate of fruitive activities conducted to make this body comfortable or uncomfortable. We have actually seen that when a man was about to die, he requested his physician to give him a chance to live 4 more years so that he could finish his plan. This means that while dying, he was thinking of his plans. After his body was destroyed, he doubtlessly carried his plan with him by means of subtle body, composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. Thus, he would get another chance by the grace of the Supreme Lord, the Super Soul, who is always within the heart. Sarvasya chaham hrudi sannivishto matah smurtir jnanam apohanam cha. In the next birth, one acquires remembrance from the Super Soul and begins to execute the plans begun in the previous life. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita in another verse 18.61. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrudeshu arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra arudhani maya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjun, and is directing the wandering of all living entities who are seated as on machine made of the material energy. 18.16 Bhagavad Gita. Situated on the vehicle given by material nature and reminded by the Super Soul within the heart, the living entity struggles all over the universe to fulfill his plans, thinking, I am a Brahmana, I am a Kshatriya, I am American, I am Indian, and so on. All these designations are of the same essence. There is no point in becoming a Brahmana in preference to an American or becoming an American in preference to a Negro. After all, these are all bodily consumption under the modes of material nature. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Enam Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Sapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamahyam Dadati Sopadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavancham Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalitan Sri Vishakhan Vitancha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rushabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpataru Vishya Krupa Sindhu Vivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kunkaroti Vachanam Pangam Langayate Giri Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinataranam. The living entity labors under the bodily conception of I am this, I am that. My duty is this, and therefore I shall do it. These are all mental impressions, and all these activities are temporary. Nonetheless, by the grace of Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity gets a chance to execute all his mental concoction, and thus he gets another body. So, just a quick recap. So, we are reading from chapter 29 from the Canto 4th, Shloka number 62. So, before we recap, so once again, welcome all devotees for our Sunday feast. We are reading from chapter 29, Shloka number 62. So, this chapter 29, at the beginning of the chapter 29, so before that, we know that Narad Muni is telling to Prachin Bharshad the allegorical story. And when Narad Muni is telling, Prachinar couldn't apprehend. He says, I haven't understood fully. And I haven't understood fully. So can you please give me some proper perspective so that I can understand it? Because king has been attached to the fruitive activities, and Narad Muni, as a spiritual master, trying to tell him the higher than the fruitive activity is a devotional service. And Narad Muni begins to describe the characteristics of devotional service and what are the differences between the devotional service and fruitive activities. So before this 62nd shloka, Prachin asked a question, and the question typically asked in this material world very often. So the question asked by Prachin was that the result, he says that before he asks the question, he says the result of whatever a living entity does in this material world are enjoyed in the next life. So that means that whatever we do in this life, the result we may get in the next life. So that the obvious question that one may have, that how is it possible that one suffers or enjoys the result of the activities of whatever he has done in this body, and he suffers in the next body. So in the next shloka, then he asks a proof. It's not surprised that today people ask questions, but of course today's question is of more challenging. The mood is different, where Prachin Arvishad is asking in a different way, but the mood is different in today when the same question is asked. The question that asked that one enjoys or suffers, because the Vedic conclusion is that one enjoys or suffers the results of his past activities. But practically, it is seen that the body that performed the actual work, which is finished in the last birth, is already lost. So how is it possible that one can enjoy or suffer the reactions of the previous work, which was in a different body? It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. How can I suffer of the activity which we have done in the previous life, which has no meaning? There is no connection. So this is the question that was asked. So basically, Prachin Arvishad is asking a proof of that. And of course, Narad Muni would answer that. But in that purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the atheists want evidence. Can you show me that? Prove that seeing is a believing. You want to show you want to see the evidence of the resultant of actions of the past activities. Therefore, generally people ask, where is the proof that I'm suffering or enjoying is the resultant of the previous karma? And then a couple of shlokas before this shloka, Narad Muni continues. He says, the living entities, he says that living entities acts in a gross body. And then there is, so basically he gives in simple words what we also shows in our Gita course, that this living entity gets two kinds of body. The one body is called as gross body, and other body is called as subtle body. So the gross body which is what the living entity acts, Narad Muni says, which is made of Pancha Mahabhutas, earth, water, fire, air, ether. And there is another body which is called as a Sukshma Sharira, which is the subtle body. And the subtle body is composed of the mind, intelligence, and the false ego. And Narad Muni says that after the gross body is lost, the subtle body is still there. And that is what enjoys or suffers. So therefore, there is no change. So the gross body is nothing but the instrumental outer covering. Because when the gross body is lost, or when person leaves this gross body, the root of the gross body, which is nothing but the subtle body, which continues and which brings about another gross body. So although the gross body apparently changes, the real root of the gross body is always there, and that is nothing but the subtle body. And by subtle body is one may do the pious activity or impious activity, which creates for the living entities another situation either to enjoy or suffer. Thus, the subtle body continues, whereas the gross body change one after the other, one after the other. So the root of distress and happiness, Prabhupada writes in the purport, is nothing but the subtle body, which is nothing but the mind, intelligence, and ego. So how do we understand the distress and happiness? For example, this is the example that we were discussing some couple of weeks ago, that when the student along with his friends going to enjoy somewhere in a restaurant or for watching a movie or something like that, and or taking a very favorite dish, is about to take his favorite dish, and then he gets to know that the results of his exam are announced, and either he did not get good marks or he could not pass all subjects. Immediately, even though in front of him all his favorite dishes are there, he would not really enjoy because his mind is disturbed. So here Prabhupada writes that the root of distress is the mind, intelligence, and the false ego, which creates an atmosphere with the desires and ambitions that the living entity enjoys. So even though the root cause of all this is a subtle body, but we still need an instrument, and that instrument is nothing but this gross body. So the gross body may changes from one body to another, different planetary system, but the root cause is the subtle body, Srila Prabhupada writes, and that is where actually carries from one body to the another body. It apparently so simple. And of course, when we read Srila Prabhupada books, no matter how tough and challenging these concepts, Prabhupada writes in a very beautiful and simple way, so that people like us in this Kali Yuga dull-headed people can understand very easily. However, there are people, they don't understand these simple things. It appears that they are not able to understand. And why that they are not able to understand? So Prabhupada writes in the purport that because these people, and Prabhupada says that typically these all philosophers and the materialists, they are too materialistic, attached to the material things. Vyavasayatmika Buddhism. So it says that Bhogi Aishwarya Prasaktanata. So those who are attached for these material things, and since Maya Apahruta Jnanam, their knowledge has been stolen by Maya, the illusory energy, they cannot understand. It appears so simple that how one living entity is taking one body to the other body, but he suffers the results of his action, what he has done in the past life. If we don't understand through this answer what Narad Muni is given, it's very difficult to even get the answer of very simple question, that why somebody is born very rich, at the same time somebody born that they don't have even the basic facilities. Somebody born is very beautiful, whereas somebody born is very ugly. Somebody born is very rich, poor, man, woman, young, or whatever thing that. So how is that? And those questions are Narad Muni saying that it's possible that once we understand the concept of the subtle body. To make it clear, Narad Muni gives an analogy. He gives the analogy of the dreaming. The one person is dreaming while dreaming. So he gives up all his actual body or subtle body. He might be lying on the bed and rest, but but in the dream, he might be actually becoming some animal, or some animal is chasing him, or something like this. So similarly, and once the dream is over, he forgets what was that in dream, and he comes to his consciousness of the current body. So similarly, Narad Muni says that one gives up this gross body and he enters in another body, and he forgets, just like that, he forgets what happens in a dream. Similarly, the living entity takes on another gross body, and he forgets the present gross body or the previous gross body. So in today's, so by telling the how living entities, the connection between the previous life and this life is the subtle body. Now we will see in this particular shloka, today's shloka, just a simple example that earlier days when people have the bank account, and when the bank account is there, so they used to have the passbook. When the passbook is there, so the previous passbook is finished. So then what happens? Start of the next passbook that it will be carried forward the previous balance. So even the previous passbook is over, the gross body is changed, but the money did not change. It's carried forward from the previous account, I mean the previous passbook to the this passbook. So similarly, and what is the connection? And Narad Muni says the connection between them is the subtle body. And we will see some of the shlokas from Bhagavad Gita which actually gives that. And particularly in this today's shloka now, Narad Muni is telling that how this living entity is actually going, it's punarabhava, sansara. And that's very beautiful. He gives the steps. Prabhupada writes as a translation, very beautiful. So first thing, that identifying, well, as soon as we get this body, and because of this material platform, one identify oneself with this body, and then he says, I am this and I am that, and this belongs to me, I belongs to that. So that is what the identifying with the material body. And because of the identifying with the material body, Jiva performs actions. And Prabhupada writes in the translation, Prabhupada writes translation, it's all temporary. Now, why it is a temporary? Because the root cause, because when in a mathematical theorem, we assume something. And once we assume that aphorisms, and based on that, we prove some theorem. But if our assumption is wrong, whatever we prove, that actually goes wrong. So similarly, here we assume that we are this body. We identify ourselves with this body. And because we identify ourselves with this body, whatever these actions we do, whatever the actions we do, those actions are connected or based on the assumption that we are body. And since the body is temporary, the actions are also temporary. However, even though actions are temporary, but it creates some resultant actions, some resultants. And one of the resultants that it creates the impressions in the subtle body. And that is why it is very important, because in the whole life, living entity creates impression, sanskara, impression, one after the other. And the risk is that he carries this impression in the next life, and the super soul facilitate next life such a way that he carry out this mental impression. And that is why Vedic life or Vedas, it is mentioned that not to enjoy in the sense gratification. Why? Is Veda or the philosophers or the saintly persons are against us? We become happy by enjoying the sense gratification? No. Because they understand that once we try to enjoy in the sense gratification, it creates a sanskara, and that sanskara becomes so strong that next time we want to do the same activity again and again. Punha charvita charvina. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, 3rd chapter, 39th shloka, that this lust, which is the eternal enemy, cannot be fulfilled, satisfied by this material activity. In fact, it becomes stronger and stronger. However, the promises that the outside world actually shows that just do it, and by doing that you will become very happy. But unfortunately, that once we do some activity of sense gratification, the impression becomes so stronger that next time it becomes very difficult for the individual or the living entities to tolerate that. So that is why the sanskaras become stronger and stronger, just like Prabhupada writes in that purport that it's like putting the fire, putting the ghee on the fire. So what happened by putting the ghee on the fire will not get quenched, rather it becomes stronger and stronger. So similarly, by enjoying bhoga dukkha yona evati, by engaging, by coming in contact with the senses, sense objects, we don't get the satisfaction, rather the same object which was the cause of giving the satisfaction become the cause of the miseries. Yahi sansparsaja bhoga dukkha ena evati adi antavanta kaunte nateshu ramate buddha. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 5.22, he says that the living entity who is intelligent Buddha, he knows that it has a beginning and intelligence, it has beginning and it has end. He would not engage in such activity. And then what happens? This sanskara, because we carry the risk, so we carry all this mental impression in the subtle body. And as Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 15.8, Shariram yadapnati yachapi utkramati ishvara gruhitvaitani sanyati vayur gandhani vashayat. So the living entity in this material world, just like he carries the different conceptions, the sanskaras, the impressions. So just like the Vayur Gandha, the air carries the aroma, similarly, he takes one kind of body and he leaves the one body and takes another body. So this is how these sanskaras are taken from one body to the another body. And then, Prabhupada, I mean, in the translation, it is said that by the mercy of Lord, he get a chance to give these plants a shape in the next life. So nice, Prabhupada's purports are so beautiful. So how Lord is giving a mercy. There are two ways the Lord gives a mercy. And that's why Prabhupada quotes in the purport 15.15, Sarvasya chaham hrudi sannivishto mataha smurtir jnanam apohanam cha vedaiche sarve haram eva vedo vedanta kruta veda vidaiva chaham. So first thing Lord Krishna gives that he reminds, he gives the remembrance. And the second thing is that Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrudeshu arjuna tishtanti brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra arudhani maya. So he gives a yantra, the vehicle. So how Lord gives a mercy? Lord gives a mercy because we have this impression, and that impression has to now come into a form or to come into manifest. So then Krishna gives this vehicle as a body, and also he gives a remembrance which comes from Lord Sri Krishna, and as a super soul within the heart, and the living entity struggles all over this universe to fulfill his plan. So therefore, it's so important that as long as, very much, please give attention, this is a purport from Srila Prabhupada, as long as there is unfulfilled desire which are connected to this word remains in our heart, one takes birth. So by the mercy of the Lord, one gets the chance, and again we take a birth, and then identifying with the body, I am this, I am that, and then we perform the activity, it creates sanskara. Then again at the time of death we carry this plan to the next life, and then continues. Therefore, in fact, I was reading one book from His Holiness Indra Swami Maharaj. Maharaj writes about his disciple. She's leaving her body, and the Maharaj says that, please don't carry any material desire. As long as there is unfulfilled desire which are connected to this material world, that remains in our heart, we have to take. He said that even if you have a desire as simple as taking a gulab jam, please take a gulab jam, but don't carry any desires, because as soon as we have a material desire, one must take a material body, because without material body we cannot fulfill this material desire. And Krishna, being very merciful, he gives opportunity one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, that we fulfill all this desire, but in the process we will turn to him. As we more than we wanted to go to Krishna, Krishna is more eager that he wants all of us to take. And how he gives opportunity? He gives opportunity that he comes himself. Yada yada dharmasya glanir bhavati bharat. Not only that he gives a Bhagavad Gita. Not only that, he gives his very, very close associates. They come and tell us And they said, Jiva Jago, Gaura Chandra. He said that, please get up, get up. We are sleeping on the lap of which Maya, Pishacha. We are sleeping, and get up and come turn our face to Krishna. Because this identifying with this material body means the underlying principle is that we have turned away from Krishna. And the root, the medicine that for all our suffering is that we turn our face towards Krishna. One may say, oh, I cannot remember from my past life. Why is this happening to me? Why only me? It doesn't matter actually. All this question has no, because super soul journey with us. Upadrasta Anumanta Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara, 14th chapter, 24th shloka. 24, 25. Super soul journey with us from one life to the another life, and he facilitated along with the material nature so that we can fulfill that. We may forget, but super soul reminds us, Sarvasya Chahamrudi Sannivishtam. Just like when the child, sometimes he may forget, but the father will remind, you know that when you were a small child, you used to do this, you used to do that. But the child may, oh, I don't remember, but father reminds him. So similarly, the super soul reminds us. The super soul, or the guide of the living entities, he doesn't take a part in the activity. Just like Upanishad says that there are two birds. One is sitting on the bird who is enjoying the fruits of his activity, and the other bird is just observing or witnessing. Upadrishta Anumanta Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. So he's just fulfilling the desire, making the facility. He facilitated such a way that the living entity can fulfill his desire. He arranges for the fulfillment of all the desires. He's in background for all of us, so that we can fulfill all our desire. Now the question may come that what if we make our activities, or we make a plan to become happy, right? Because after all, Anandamaya, the living entity, the nature of the living entity is to become happy. So what is the falsity, or what is the problem, or what is the implication that we try to become happy in this material world? And there's a very beautiful shloka by Prahlad Maharaj in 7th canto, 7th chapter, shloka number 42. Sukhaya dukkha mokshaya sankalpa iha karmina sada apnito iha dukkham anihaya sukha vruta. So in this material world, every materialist, Prabhupada, right? Every materialist desire, what he desires? He desires two things. Sukhaya, that is the shloka 7.7.42. He desires to achieve the happiness, and dukkha mokshaya, and he tries to diminish his distress. And therefore, iha karmina, therefore he acts accordingly, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, makes so many plans, and at the end of that, oh, we're not happy. What's wrong here? I'm trying to make so many plans to become happy, but somehow or the other, I'm thinking that I'm not becoming happy. The purpose is getting defeated. The whole purpose of all making different plans that one become happy. But unfortunately, Sukhaya and Dukkha Mokshaya, our whole life is that how to become happy and how to get rid of, diminish our distress. However, the next line of the shloka gives the reality. Because all these endeavors are futile. The reality that sada apnito iha dukkham, sada, always apnito, he achieves dukkha. Unfortunately, what he achieves, the living entity, what he achieves? He achieves only dukkha by trying so many things to become sukha and dukkha moksha. At the end, what is that? Sada apnito iha dukkha. Unfortunately, one achieves only dukkha. So Prabhupada translates, actually, however, one is happy as long as one does not endeavor for happiness. So as soon as one begins his activity for happiness, and that is where it begins the distress. So that is how Prahlad Maharaj alerts us, cautions us, warns us that if you try to become happy independent of Krishna, independent of Krishna's devotees, all we can get in this material world is dukkha. And at the end. In fact, we make a plan to become happy, but it is a beginning of our distress. Prabhupada writes in the purport so beautifully. Then what should we do? Prabhupada writes in the purport that the miseries and the mixed happiness are the two features of this material life. They are obtained from Brahma Bhuvana Loko Punaravartito Arjuna, in other lokas also. They are obtained in the life either in the demigod or animals or dogs or hawks or cats. The miseries and the mixed happiness of living beings are of only different degrees and qualities. Some may get more miseries or mixed happiness to some degree, but Prabhupada says it is only the degree and the quality that varies from the living entities. Dukkhalayam ashasvatam. But no one is free from the miseries of Janma, Mrityu, Zara, Vyadhi. So Prabhupada writes that everyone is a destined happiness, and no one can get more or less than the things simply by personal endeavors. Even if somebody obtains, Prabhupada said that even if somebody obtains, they can be lost again. So then what should we do? Prabhupada quotes Bhagavatam 1.5.18, which is very, very wonderful shloka. Tasaiva heto prayatet kovidha. So therefore, one should not waste this human form of life in these flimsy things, and one should endeavor prayatet kovido. Prayatet kovido means one should endeavor, which is the highest destination, to go back to Godhead, and that should be the mission of everyone's life. Tasaiva heto prayateta kovido na labhyate yad brahmatam prayardham tad labhyate dukkho dukkanyad sukham kalen sarvatra gambira amsa. So those who are intelligent and philosophically inclined, the translation says, should endeavor only for the purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from Brahma Loka to the topmost, from Brahma Loka to the lowest planet Patala. So therefore, Prabhupada writes in the purport that one should only endeavor to go back to the Godhead, and that should be the mission of our life. Because anything other than that, no matter however plans that we make, very sophisticated, very hi-fi or better plans, but at the end, dukkha eva he, we will actually get only dukkha, and that is the predictions of Bhagavatam, and that is what Bhagavad Gita Dukkha Yona Yevate Adi Antavanta Kaunte 5.22, and Prahlad Maharaj also the same teaching, exactly the same thing. There's no difference between the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, Prabhupada says that the mission of our life, that how we can get rid of these impressions of this subtle body, which carries from one life to the other, and then it becomes so entangled that we do, and that's why it is Nitya Baddha. Time immemorial, we are actually suffering in this material body from one life to the other life, carrying this impression, which has become denser, stronger, and entanglement become very tough and very, very difficult to untie the knot of this Hridaya Granthi. And so this, how to get the liberation, means getting out of not only this gross body, because liberation means not only get rid of this gross body, because even if we get rid of the gross body, the subtle body still remains. The subtle body carries all these impressions. That's what Narad Muni is stating here. So we have to get liberations from this, not only from the gross body, but we have to purify the material consumption. That's why Prabhupada translates that 15.8. It takes the consumptions of one life to the another life. So we have to purify this subtle body, and because the giving up one body and taking another body is not a liberation, it is simply the transmigration. It is nothing but the punarjanma, transmigration of soul from one body to another. So liberation means purifying these consumptions of this subtle body, and at the same time go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada writes a prescription in the previous sloka 61 or 62. Prabhupada writes a beautiful prescription how one can get rid of these all consumptions of the subtle body and go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada said that he quotes Bhagavad Gita, shloka number 34, chapter number 9. Manmana bhava madbhakto maddaji mam namaskuru mami vaishasi yuktaivam atmanam mataparayana. The prescription is given by Lord Krishna himself. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your homages. And being completely yuktam, evaisi yuktaivam, completely absorbed in me, surely will come. The same shloka repeats, but the last line different, 18.65. So Prabhupada gives in this previous shloka how one can go back to God, and he gives 4 things very beautifully. He says, fix mind, manmanava, on the mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who is present in his Archa Vigraha. There is no difference between Lord and Lord's Archa Vigraha. And then second thing, Srila Prabhupada says that always engage in his worship. And the third thing, Srila Prabhupada says that always engage our speech in describing the activities of the Lord and our ears in hearing about his pastime. And then fourth thing, Prabhupada said that when we follow the regulative principles to keep our mind intact for advancing in Krishna consciousness, with this all 4 things, Prabhupada says that one will definitely go back to Godhead. So what is that first thing? Fixing the mind on the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, who is present in the Archa Vigraha. Always engaging worship of Lord. Our speech engaging in describing the glories of Lord, and ears hearing about that pastimes, and then following the 4 regulative principles given by acharyas, and then one will definitely go back to Godhead. The perfect example of this is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's Ambarish Maharaj, who always engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Savai Manaha Krishna Padaravindayo. All his senses engaged in the service of Lord Krishna. His hands cleaning the temple, legs going to the temple, mind thinking of this, eyes seeing the beautiful of, nose smelling the flower offered to Krishna. Similarly, all his senses hearing the glories of Lord Krishna, the tongue chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna, chanting the glories of Lord Sri Krishna, engaging all senses in the service. The perfect example of Ambarish Maharaj. By doing this, Srila Prabhupada says that one will go back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of how if we make a plan other than Krishna in our plan, if we are just plan that how to become ourselves happy, execute our plan, because we cannot live without a plan. But if the plan has none but Krishna, then the result that what we can see, Prabhupada says in the purport, Prabhupada says that gives the example of a man from Kolkata and who was about to die. And he requested the doctor that can you give him a chance so that I can live for 4 more years, so that I can finish my plan. And Prabhupada writes that this means that while leaving his body, he was thinking of his plan. And then Prabhupada also tells what would happen after that. Definitely, after leaving his body, he would doubtlessly, Prabhupada says that doubtlessly, he would be carried to the next body where he would try to fulfill his plans. And many times Prabhupada said that if we are attached to the house, one may take birth as a dog or whatever is that and do boo so that you'll protect from other people. But the same in the same house that maybe son or grandson may beat you by stick. So this is the situation that if one or two attached. So here this person, even if he was ready to spend millions of rupees or lakhs and crores of rupees, but he cannot go more, whatever. Forget about the 4 years. We cannot get even a moment extra than what is destined in one's life. So this is what would actually Prabhupada said, this is what happened, that if we make a plan other than Krishna, we will get another chance to fulfill. By the Lord's mercy, we'll get another chance. Another chance means punarapi janam, punarapi maranam. So then janma mrityu jara vyadhi would continue. In our one of the groups, that how we can remain focused. How can we get rid of these desires? How can we get rid of these plans other than Krishna's plans? These desires are like waves of river. It's very difficult to stop, but not very easy. Waves are compared, when the waves comes and meets ocean, it's our pushes back. So similarly, the plans of the material desire, which are nothing but for the sense gratification, but the devotees, when they make the intelligence plan to serve the Lord, so these plans actually, just like the waves of the rivers actually push back by the ocean. So similarly, this material desire, the stagnant material desire, gets over flooded with the desire to serve Lord. So when we make a desire to serve the Lord, automatically the desire for other things will automatically gets over flooded, and all will have the desire to serve Lord or Lord's devotees. We cannot stop making a plan, because plan making is the symptom of life. But changing one's plan is very important. Because it's very wonderful. Recently, I was hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto. Narad Muni is telling Vasudeva how potent and the powerful is devotional service. Engaging in Krishna's devotional service, not only actually it takes the reactions, but it actually takes the sinful weed from our conceptions of the subtle mind. And once the subtle mind is actually purified, then one can actually go back. So Narad Muni tells that to Vasudeva, when Vasudeva is asking Narad Muni that the glories of the devotional service, Narad Muni tells that the pure devotional service rendered to the Lord Sri Krishna is spiritually so potent that simply by hearing about this devotional service, by chanting the glories in response, by meditating on it, not only that, just by respectfully and faithfully accepting this, or simply by praising the devotional service of other devotees, not we personally engaging, just by praising the devotional service of other devotees, Narad Muni is telling and giving a hope for all of us that even a person, so what would happen just by accepting faithfully, by respectfully, just by praising the devotional service of other devotees, the persons who hate the demigods or all the living entities can be immediately purified. That is the potency of the devotional service. That is the greatness of the devotional service, that by engaging them, we can actually purify immediately. So I just wanted to give one example, and then we will end here. So how having a plan for Krishna is such a wonderful in our life, such a glorious thing to have a plan for, to please Krishna. So having Krishna in our plan, having thinking favorable for Krishna makes our life very glorious. So one sannyasi, he was actually giving the example of His Holiness Gaur Goswami Maharaj, that Gaur Goswami was very expert in making plan. He had such intense desire, and he had made a lot of plans to meet a qualified sadhu. He was making a plan. He went to Himalayas and he met a different sadhus there, and the different sadhus told him of a different Vedic philosophy, but that really did not satisfy Maharaj. So finally he said, okay, let me just try and go to Vrindavan. And as you know that he was going through Vrindavan and passing through the Raman Reti, and he saw Krishna Balaram Mandir, and he saw the name, the founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When he saw the founder Srila Prabhupada's name, he had immediate desire to meet Srila Prabhupada. Before that, he didn't know who is this Srila Prabhupada, but yes, Krishna had his own plan. And then Maharaj had a desire to meet Srila Prabhupada, and he goes to Srila Prabhupada's quarter, and that time Brahmananda was Srila Prabhupada's secretary, personal secretary. So he went and he requested that, can I meet? So and Brahmananda goes to Srila Prabhupada, and then Srila Prabhupada says that, yeah, bring him in. And then Gaur Goswami Maharaj goes to Srila Prabhupada's rooms, and then just by speaking in a few minutes, Srila Prabhupada said to him, you should take a sannyasa. And just like Prabhupada, similarly in the same way. So, and Maharaj couldn't believe that. And he immediately accepted, this is my Guru Maharaj. I will follow my Guru Maharaj. Because he knows my heart. I have made so many plans. But Krishna, by his mercy, made this arrangement and brought to this sadhu, who is now I'm accepting as my spiritual master. So Srila Prabhupada, just to have some service, he asked, or rather, Maharaj asked Srila Prabhupada, how can I serve you? And then Maharaj said, can you translate in Hindi? Initially he gave in Hindi. So Maharaj said, what you want me to translate? And Srila Prabhupada gave him an article to translate. And Maharaj did that. And Srila Prabhupada saw that, Prabhupada was happy with that. And then Prabhupada gave him more service. Because when we engage in the service, and the result of the service that we get more service. And then that means that he has to stay in Vrindavan. He had no place to stay, so he was making his arrangement. And Prabhupada came to know that he's not staying with us and he's making his plan. So Prabhupada arranged that he should stay with us. And then he started doing his translation. Later, Srila Prabhupada came to know that he's from Orissa. And then Srila Prabhupada asked him to translate Orissa in Odia language. So this is the instruction, and see that how when we have a plan related to Krishna, and Krishna makes our plan glorious. And then Maharaj is translating in Odia language. And then Srila Prabhupada got a piece of land in Bhubaneswar, and Srila Prabhupada requested Maharaj that should go to Bhubaneswar, and Prabhupada said he wanted a temple to be opened in Bhubaneswar. And then Maharaj immediately came to Bhubaneswar, and when he came, that piece of land was very primitive. There was no electricity and no place to stay, no snakes around, and then Maharaj would stay there. And before he actually renounced, Maharaj was a teacher, and some of his students, when they came to know about their teacher, that's nothing but Maharaj, they came forward to help Maharaj. They wanted him to stay him a better place, but no, he wanted to fulfill the desire of Srila Prabhupada. And what he would do, he would go out and find persons so that who can give financial assistance. He arranged electricities and different facilities for these properties. Sometimes he whole day he will go from one place to the other so that he get all the facilities, the financial assessment. And not only that, he was given the instruction of building a temple, but he was also given the instruction of translating. So if sometimes it becomes too late, he wouldn't eat until he finished his translation. Imagine such a wonderful dedication to follow to execute the instruction of spiritual master. So Maharaj showing by his own example. So once Maharaj invited Srila Prabhupada came to Bhubaneswar after Kumbh Mela, and he built hut for Srila Prabhupada, and he made pandal programs, and Srila Prabhupada stayed for 7 days. And in that lecture, the speaker was saying that Maharaj was narrating. Srila Prabhupada told him in very confidential that some people will come here and they will say, hey, why are you building temple here? Rather, you should build a temple in Puri. He said, but don't do that. You build a temple in Bhubaneswar. And not only that, Prabhupada said that you should have 3 altars. One altar, Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani, other altar, Gaur Nitai, and the other altar, Krishna Balaram. And so Gaur Gonswami Maharaj got the second instruction, and he had a third instruction that you go all over the world and preach the preachers. And that is how Gaur Gonswami Maharaj had. So he would not, if he doesn't translate, he would not eat until he finished his translation. So he were given the instruction of translation, building the temple, and that too in Bhubaneswar from the very primitive place, and also go all over the world. Despite all these services, Maharaj was completely dedicated for the service of Srila Prabhupada. So we have to make a plan here so that we can push back the influence of the material desire. So what is that plan? If our mind is not filled with the supreme plan, then our plan will be filled with the inferior plans. Because the life cannot go continue without making plans. We make a small plans, but our plans are how to make our life comfortable in this material world, but we have to remind ourselves that the Prahlad Maharaj prayer, that if we make a plan to become ourselves happy, then we are nothing but inviting the miseries. And Prabhupada says that when we make our life, our plan, following the instruction, the superior's instruction, that we don't have to look for austerities. We don't have to go in a circle of fire, middle of the summer, sit there, or in the cold water, sit in the winter. No, because there are already so many austerities to follow the instructions of spiritual master. Because when we make a plan for Krishna, there is someone who is also making a plan, and that is nothing but Maya Devi. So that when we are fighting against the Maya Devi, she is also making a plan so that we can make our plan difficult. And Srila Prabhupada, we see from Srila Prabhupada that how many envious people were there to stop Srila Prabhupada, so that Srila Prabhupada would not spread the moment. But Srila Prabhupada has a plan for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's plan for Krishna's pleasure. Srila Prabhupada's plan was to fulfill his desire, just like his Holiness Gaur Goswami Maharaj had a plan that to meet a personality, and whole life was instructions of executing the instruction of spiritual master. So when we make our plan for pleasure of Krishna, when we make our plan for the pleasure of Guru and Gauranga, our life becomes glorious. But if we doesn't have plan for Krishna, then whatever plans that are not fulfilled, just like Prabhupada gives an example of that person from Kolkata, at the time of that, we will undoubtedly take this plan to the next life, and the super soul comes into picture, and then he will make arrangement for all of us, and then again Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. Prabhupada was very wonderful. Prabhupada was so expert that he knows how to engage people in Krishna consciousness, so that our minds are filled with the plan how to please Lord. Because by making this plan, we have opportunity to burn out these weeds of the desires, sinful desires, so that we don't have to come back in this material world. Since we make a plan, everybody makes a plan, because life doesn't go with the plan. But the plan without Krishna has no value. Just like we hear that there are so many things that we have, many achievements in the life are 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, n times of n number of zeros. It has no values. For n number of zeros has no value. But as soon as we put in front of that zeros as 1, then immediately that becomes infinite. So similarly, our plan gets enhanced only when somehow or the other we involve Krishna in our plan. And if we don't involve Krishna, then the super soul is Upadrashta Anumanta Bharta Bhakta Maheshwara. He's just watching as we make our plan, and there is no Leela. Imagine he's just sitting there and he's doing, he does for us, making all facilitating through the material world, through the material energy. Maya Adhikshana Prakriti Swete Characharan. There is no wonderful things in that, no good thing, that just we are making the super soul standing there and no Leela there. It's like Upanishad, 2 birds and 1 bird is watching, and 1 bird is enjoying that fruits of his reactions. He's waiting. The bird who is witnessing and observing, he's waiting when this person will turn towards me. Tesham eva anukampartam aham adnanam jama jnana dipena bhasvata. So 10.11, it is said that Krishna is waiting for all of living entities to turn to him. So we have to make our plan. We have to enhance our plan by bringing Krishna in our life. If we don't bring Krishna, then whatever the desires, Prabhupada writes, that which are not fulfilled at the time of death, we have to carry to the next. So those plans involved with Krishna, it pushes back the influence of the material desire. Not only that, our life becomes glorious. So to conclude here, that our plans should be involving Krishna at the center of our life. So bringing Krishna in the center of life means bringing Krishna, making Krishna as a center of our life. Krishna as our center of our plan, and our offering, all our endeavors as offering to Guru and Krishna. And by offering this result of our activity, our heart get purified. And when our heart get purified, there is no other plans which actually in the subtle body and which will make us to take another birth and punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, and then janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha dosha anudasana. So we don't have to suffer in this material world life after life after life. But the mission of our life should be that we go back to Godhead by engaging in wonderful Krishna service. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Any comments, questions? Okay, so yeah, so there are Bhakti Shastri classes will be started soon. Yeah, so Harikshatra Prabhu, is there any time that
Yeah.
for a
You can take, there is one question.
okay. What is the destination of one who still some tinge of material desire left, which one doesn't think of much, however, some desire is there. However, by the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, is able to think of Krishna in his last moment. So as we are hearing from Srila Prabhupada directly that if there is any unfulfilled material desire, there is every chance that we will take birth again in this material world. Because if there is a desire, so Krishna is very merciful because he's giving opportunity for all of us to fulfill our desire. And to fulfill our desire, which is connected to this material world, we have to take birth in this material world. Because we can fulfill only these desires only in this material world by having this gross body. And if we don't have this gross body, we will not be able to fulfill those desires which are independent of Krishna. So the destinations of all those, when we still have a material desire, that means we have a chance that we'll take birth in this material world again. However, if we live our whole life for the pleasure of Krishna and for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, we have seen so many examples where Prabhupada and Krishna personally remembering the devotees at the time, Antakale Mami was Smaran Mukta Kale, or at the time of death, when we remember Krishna, we'll go back to Godhead. So that is left to Krishna and Krishna's devotees. But our thing is that how we engage in Krishna's service throughout our life, because when we push back this material desire by having Krishna in the center, having a desire to fulfill Krishna's desire, to having a desire to please Srila Prabhupada, and to having a desire to please spiritual master, automatically all this material desire will be pushed back, just like the river, the oceans in the waves in the rivers will be pushed back by ocean. Similarly, these all desires will be pushed back. So we have to, His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu says that when it comes to the endeavor, as if everything depends on, perform the activities as if everything depends, but when it comes to the result, it is fully dependent on Krishna. So to conclude on that question, Prabhu or Mataji, that we will definitely come back in this material world unless and until by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, they remind us at the time of the Krishna. Otherwise, our destination is sure in this material world.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So there's a question here from IBC.
What is it, Prabhuji?
There's a question here from...
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu, please go ahead.
Prabhuji, you gave example of that even one has the desire to have gulab jamun, still he will take the birth in this material world. So can you put more finer way, Prabhuji, is that a desire for enjoyment of gulab jamun, or even he takes as prasadam? So because we'll get gulab jamun in spiritual world also, na Prabhuji, like I'm thinking like that. But still he needs to take birth, Prabhuji, like I got it out like this because...
Very good question. That is why Prabhupada said Yukta Vairagya. Engaging everything in the service of Krishna. So when we say Gulab Jamun, what His Holiness Indradurya Swami Maharaj, which I can think of that independent of Krishna. So anything related to Krishna, and that is what makes Yukta Vairagya. Srila Prabhupada and his Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was using four-wheeler at that time, 1930s and 1920s, like sannyasi using four-wheeler and crossing the oceans was unheard. But that is what very untraditional way Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would do, because engaging Yukta Vairagya, engaging all these things in the service of Krishna. So it is not the activity of eating gulab jamun makes us material things. It is the consciousness which makes the difference between the activity which is material and the activity which is spiritual. So when we have an activity which is specifically to the sense gratification, now Prabhupada gives so many times the example that the person, devotee and the other person, they are also going to the office and they are also doing the activities. But what makes a difference from the person, materialistic person and the devotees? It is only the difference that the plan is there. How do I please Krishna? How can I give a result of my activities to Krishna? So it is the consciousness in the second chapter, Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, it is not the activity that matters, but the consciousness behind that activity. So yes, of course, we can eat a gulab jam as long as is a desire to please Krishna, and of course, Srila Prabhupada mercy is there. So it's not the gulab jam that makes a difference, it's the activity, whether it's a gulab jamun or it's a prasad. I hope that helps to understand, Prabhu.
A few more questions are there, but I think we will have to wind up, because like the devotees will have a little break before going to Bhakti Shastri class. We can forward these questions. No, it will be there in the recording. So we will forward these questions to you, and we will.
Okay, okay. And also name of the devotee so that I can speak to him.
Yes, and like calling upon Sujay Gopal Prabhu for announcements. Okay, maybe they're not able to unmute.
Yes.
Okay.
Now I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Yugala Prabhuji, for a wonderful narration from this pastime of Prachinivari Sad and Narad Muni. And you elaborated very nicely on how a devotee has to plan. And you gave the icing on the cake with the very nice example of Gaurav Swami Maharaj, how he had a plan to really look for a pure devotee and take sannyas, and how the representative of the Lord also understands the plan of the inquisitive researcher, and then he takes care. So what is really required is the plan and the mood and the desire of a devotee, and Lord facilitates accordingly. Thank you very much. So yes, it's really inspiring. It's always important for us to re-emphasize, how we should have a strong desire, how we should have a strong plan. And Prabhupada always, says, especially from the example of, I remember that Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Before married, Devahuti itself, Kardama Muni said, as soon as the boy is born, I'll be taking sannyas. Before entering Grihastha ashram, exit plan is ready. So how all the devotees should be really clear in their plan on whatever they do, not that, okay, chalta rahega, chalta hai. So thank you very much for bringing this to mind that, yes, we have to plan our life very properly. Thank you very much. So couple of announcements. So let's thank, before going to the couple of announcements, let's thank Yugala Prabhu while loudly chanting Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Thank you.
Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hari Bol. Okay, so last Sunday, we had a wonderful book marathon. And it was great to hear from the leaders, like how we have been exceeding our service for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada year over year. And I'm sure wherever there is some endeavor for pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada also reciprocates. And we can hear over the next couple of weeks, right, how our different centers are coming up. But as an immediate reciprocation from their lordships, we have received the permission from our ISKCON Bureau for the land purpose. Hari Bol. So yes, we have received now to purchase the land. So Harikshatra Prabhu and Vardha Krishna Prabhu, on behalf of ISKCON, they will be signing the deal. They're just waiting for a few final meetings, and then this will be in ISKCON's name. And then there are many more things to follow. I definitely will let the devotees know how we can really not only engage ourselves, but also engage all around us as well, in this beautiful divine project that is coming up over the next couple of weeks. And yes, another very happy news is our Hour Ceremonies. Always good to see there's so many devotees coming up and taking the commitment to progress in Krishna consciousness. And we saw that close to 200 or 180 to 200 devotees have registered for the Hour Ceremony. And so many devotees taking 12 rounds and 8 rounds and also 16 rounds. So I would really like to thank all the Bhakti Vriksha leaders and also the devotees who are willing and having that desire, having that plan to move forward. So thank you very much, everybody. So thank you. Anything else, Harikshatra Prabhu, before we wrap up?
Just a minute, I'll just check. Yeah, that's all, Prabhu. Like we will be, once the date is known of the temple construction, we will announce. And I was like very happy to hear that plan making this one from Prabhu, that we are also making a lot of plans now. So we are meeting the architects and making some basic designs and things like that. So I think something wonderful will come, and we will keep once the land is registered. So then we will talk with devotees more and update things more, things like that. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Prabhuji. So let's move to IBC for national.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlad Daine Hiranyakashipurvakshaya Shilatanka nakhalaye Ito Narsimha Bharto Narsimho Yato yato yami tato Narsimha बहिर्नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो बहिर्नरसिंहो नरसिंहमयं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव कर कमलवरे नाथा अद्भुत श्रृंगार हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा केशवदीता हरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर कमल नाथा मदभुत श्रृंगार ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तान भृंगा यशवदीपा नरहरि जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय श्रील प्रभुपाद भक्ति विघ्न विनाशक नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की जय जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की